We have Corporal John T. Sandrowicz, United States Marine Corps, 1970 to 1973. Being interviewed here today by Joseph Gambino and Michael Morrissey with Daniel Macaron on the camera at Chaminade High School on Wednesday, the 8th of October, year 2003. Where and when were you born, sir?
Born in Brooklyn, New York, 1951.
What was your pre-service education?
High school.
Which high school did you attend?
Freeport High School.
Do you have a job before you entered the Marine Corps?
Yes, I did. Worked for the Town of Hempstead Department of Sanitation.
How was that job?
A good job. Still there.
When did you enter the service?
Why?
When did you enter the
Oh,
service?
when? And I went to Paris Island in August of 1970.
Was it a draft or an enlist?
I enlisted.
What do you find special about enlisting and being drafted?
I volunteered to serve my country. You know, I wasn't asked. I didn't shirk it. I thought it was the right thing to do.
Why did you select the Marine Corps?
They were the best.
Where did you receive your basic training?
Paris Island, South Carolina.
How was that?
That was rough.
You want to elaborate on how
Paris Island was 8 weeks of grueling training. I mean, people screaming, hollering at you. They had 8 weeks to get you shipshape because you were going to Vietnam. So the 8 weeks of Paris Island followed by 4 weeks of infantry training at Camp Lejeune, followed by another 4 weeks of basic specialist school. My MOS was a machine gunner.
do you have any distinct recollections from any of those 12, 16 weeks of training? Any people stand out in your minds? Drill sergeants?
Like, probably the most outstanding was my drill instructors. All my drill instructors were combat veterans. We were taught what to expect. They were the prime examples of being a Marine.
Any memory that stands out above the rest? Story you remember from the training?
Outside of the countless push-ups and rifle range, a couple of things. Go after Paris Island in the infantry training regiment, we were put through learning how to become infantry, what we refer to as grunts, and ground pounder school. And there we were taught basic infantry tactics, including going through the gas chamber, which was you had to go into a gas chamber, take off your gas mask, give your name, rank, and service number, and then put the mask back on and clear it, and then leave the chamber. So you inhaled the gas.
You said you were a Marine and you're trained as a machine gunner. Now, what unit did you serve in?
I served various units in the 1st Marine Division. I started out with 1st Marines, 1st Battalion. I started off as an assistant machine gunner, and then you actually become a machine gunner. Even though you have the MOS in a combat situation, you start off as an assistant gunner.
How did your equipment function? The machine gun during that function while you were
The M60 was a well-functioning machine gun. It gas-operated, belt-fed. It was capable of firing about 700 to 800 rounds per minute. And as long as you maintained and took care of your equipment, it functioned.
Is there a lot to do to maintain the weapon? Or?
Cleaning and maintenance was the major. That's the maintenance of it, the cleaning of it, making sure that when you didn't have an attack, or if you were not in, on a quiet time, you would clean out, break down the whole machine gun into every part, clean every piece, put it back together again, make sure it was functioning. It was a matter of life and death.
How did your other equipment fare in Vietnam?
My TO weapon or slide weapon was a 45 caliber. That was very good. 45 caliber M1911 pistol.
How was the food?
Food on base, at base in Vietnam wasn't bad. You get used to powdered eggs and powdered milk. In the field, you lived on what they call sea rations. Most guys would carry like bottles of Tabasco sauce and stuff to doctor up the sea rats to make them palatable.
Did you have any special events when you would have normal food? Have you shipped it in the States or anything like that?
Marine Corps birthday. On November 10th is the Marine Corps birthday. And all Marine Corps units, if possible, at any base will serve the steak dinner.
Not bad. How was your combat experience?
It was heavy. I saw a lot of combat. In firefights, several firefights. I was also in an overrun on a fire base.
Want to talk about that, or?
Basically the fire base was a fire base command center. At the time we were attacked by North Vietnamese regulars and supported by Viet Cong. And literally they were through the wires. And we actually fought hand to hand.
Any other memories stand out in your mind of your combat experience in Vietnam?
Combat is, it's weird. You don't think, and you can't think. If you think too much in combat, you die. It's all reflective action. What you learned in basic training is how to react and go in, attack a position, and what you were supposed to do. It all becomes very like a reflex, and that's what they train you for. Combat, you don't think too much about it. The noise is deafening. At times it feels like it's a slow motion going on. It's a weird experience. Truthfully, I hope you never experience it. It's not a good thing. Combat becomes brutal. To see what you could do to a man at close range after a while, you have to develop a toughness to it. You can't think about death.
So you feel that your training in Paris Island and Camp Lejeune is the reason you're here today?
And the grace of God.
God always helps. Did you receive any medals, citations while serving in Vietnam?
Well, Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry, Bronze Star, a couple my campaign ribbons, my service ribbons, and presidential unit citations, and all the units we were in. Got a few decorations.
How would you keep in touch with those at home while you were overseas?
Letter writing. Mostly, but it was done by letter writing.
The military post was efficient, or how do you feel about the military post?
They were fairly efficient. The only time is if you were in a unit that was traveling a lot, then of course out in the field, a lot of times you may not got your mail right away until they caught up with you. Depending on where you were stationed. Some places the mail came on a regular basis. If you were at certain outposts in Vietnam, you may have only gotten supplies every other week, especially if you were working with the South Vietnamese Marines. So you would have to, your mail might be a little delayed.
Can you describe your relationship with the Vietnamese people?
Some of it was good, but overall it wasn't a happy experience dealing with the Vietnamese.
How do you feel today about them?
I still have a mistrust.
They're still investing hatred.
You could not tell who was a friend or an enemy. That was, you could not decipher, such as what's going on in Iraq today. You cannot decipher at times who was a friend.
How would you feel towards the Vietnamese soldiers in the South helping out the U.S. forces?
Vietnamese Marines and the Vietnamese Rangers were top-notch unit. Vietnamese Army was not.
Where in Vietnam were you stationed?
Stationed outside Da Nang, in a place they call Dog Patch.
Do you have any memorable experience at that particular station?
Yes. One night I was out in town with a bunch of friends of mine. We were drinking some beer, having a good time. I was coming back to base. And usually when I went out drinking, I would get very hungry. And we came back and I saw, they call Mama San on the side. She was cooking, she had these things on a spit. I thought it was chicken. It turned out I was eating monkey meat. They never should have told me.
Was there any racial problems within your unit?
Some. There were some racial problems, but that racial problems came and gone. It was the era, so there was always a problem. But basically, once you were out in the field and as a combat unit within the whole, there was no problem because everybody's life depends on each other.
How did you feel about your fellow Marines in your units?
Love my fellow Marines.
Can you describe your relationship at all with the government officials?
South Vietnamese government officials?
South Vietnamese and the United States.
South Vietnamese government officials, quite a few of them were corrupt, in my opinion. Didn't deal with too many U.S. Government people. No congressmen or senators or anything like that.
What was your reaction when Westmoreland was replaced as commander?
The happy occasion. Westmoreland was not suitable to be a commander-in-chief of the armed forces down in Vietnam.
What about the election of Nixon?
I am what's referred to as a Nixonian Republican. My first election, I voted for Richard Nixon. I have followed Richard Nixon from 1957, 58, since I was old enough to know politics. Nixon was one of the finest minds of a politician this country's ever seen. The man had a foreign policy. He actually brought the Vietnamese to their knees by mining Haiphong Harbor, by putting squeeze on Britain and France, who also helped supplying the Vietnamese with certain non-military aid, increased the bombings of Hanoi, sent troops into Laos and Cambodia, and attacked the Ho Chi Minh Trail. He actually brought the Vietnamese to the Paris Peace Accords. Nixon was the greatest president there ever was.
Did you vote while you served in Vietnam?
I voted the first time in 1972. I had just come back from Vietnam, and that was the year I turned 21. Back then you had to be 21 to vote.
Do you have any comments about Jane Fonda?
Hanoi Jane. I hate the woman. This country should have tried her for treason. She was very disheartening to the American forces that were there that saw her, and probably even more disheartening to the POWs that were there in Vietnam, in North Vietnam.
How so?
Well, seeing an American there taking the Vietnamese part, and here you are a fighting man, and you're captured by the North Vietnamese, and they were not treated according to Geneva Conventions. They were treated quite brutally. People like Senator McCain, Jane Fonda should have been tried as a traitor to this country.
How did you feel when American troops were pulled out of South Vietnam?
We felt, a lot of the GIs and really felt that it was a betrayal to us. I mean, guys were glad to get out of combat, but at the same point, we were labeled as, well, you couldn't do your job, so they're de-escalating the war. Our hands were tied in a lot of circumstances.
What about the fall of South Vietnam to the North Vietnamese?
That was around the time of my son's first birthday. I was quite upset. I thought back to a lot of people that I knew who had died, guys who were wounded. I felt very traumatic about it.
How were your experiences when you got back from Vietnam? How were you treated by the public, you and family? Was Vietnam affected the way you were viewed in any way?
Yes. When I come back from Vietnam, there was a peace rally going on in the town that I was living in, Freeport at the time, and I had a gentleman who started to refer to me as baby killer. I tried walking away, and the guy persisted to rat on me, I guess, whatever you want to call it, but he kept pursuing it, and at one point he pushed me. and at that point I had literally beat the hell out of him.
How do you feel today about the American public opinion during the Vietnam War?
American public opinion was swayed by the press and by people like Jane Fonda and a number of liberals in this country, and it put, to this day I'm very bitter about a lot of those people.
Do you believe terrain and climate affected the battle in Vietnam?
It worked to the enemy's advantage.
How so?
Well, in jungle warfare, you will the foliage is quite heavy. I mean, they literally could hide into the Vietnamese were experts in camouflage, quite adapted to it. We're also able to set up booby traps along the various trails, and they harmed a lot of Americans. The booby traps would have been punjai sticks, mines of various sorts, tiger traps, which not only did it affect the guys who got hurt by them, but it affects the morale of a platoon or a company that's actually working that area. Because you see, it's very demoralizing to see somebody losing a leg or get stepped on these things. It's very demoralizing to a combat unit.
The movie We Were Soldiers, how accurate do you think that was?
I didn't see that movie.
You said earlier that the regular South Vietnamese soldiers weren't that good. However, their Marines and their special
Vietnamese,
forces.
Marines, and the Rangers were excellent units.
How do you feel about the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong soldiers?
North Vietnamese soldier was well-equipped, not a well-equipped, but a formidable opponent. It was a man that could live on less than a pound of rice a day, could march for miles, and then without a break go into a full campaign. They were very, very formidable foe. The United States, Westmoreland underestimated them completely.
Did you ever enter a Vietnamese cave?
You mean a
An
tunnel?
underground tunnel?
Once.
How was that experience?
Scary. When I was in Vietnam, I was my height 5'11", but I had gone down to 155 pounds, and so I was able to squeeze into a couple of the tunnels. I did not like that. Very scary.
Were there any remnants of the Vietnamese items in those tunnels, or were they all cleared out?
Yeah, there was some artifacts in there. We went in there looking. We found some. You'd find flags, maybe busted up part of a weapon. The Vietnamese, the Viet Cong and them were very well at recycling. They didn't leave much, unless they had to leave in a hurry. So, at the one tunnel that I had gone in, they knew we were in the area. So, they just, they didn't leave too much, but we saw some stuff there.
How do you feel today about your time in Vietnam? Any lasting impressions? Do you feel it was? Do you have a good impression of your time in Vietnam? Do you think it was good that you were over there? We were over there, or do you think it was misguided?
My impressions were of Vietnam were good. I wanted to go. I didn't hesitate about that. War is not a thing you can actually say you enjoy. Anybody who ever says they enjoy war is sick. It's not a great thing to be into. But the camaraderie of the Marines that I served with, a brotherhood of men, that part of it was enjoyable. Those were men that I could trust with my life, and they trusted me with their life. So that part of the Vietnam was a positive experience. Did I ever feel that we were somewhat lied to by some of the people, by senior people such as Westmoreland? I think they lied about certain things, but overall it wasn't my worst experience in life. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst either.
Did you have a favorite officer that you always looked up to?
Yes, I had Captain McKenna. He was a good man. He was from Baltimore, Maryland. When he found out that I had gone to Freeport High School and I had played lacrosse, I actually played a couple games of lacrosse in Vietnam because of him. He was a lacrosse buff, and he knew Long Island was heavy into lacrosse, so he was a good man. He was one of the best I served under. And General McTompkins.
Was there any cultural exchange between you and the Vietnamese people?
Other than monkey meat.
Cultural exchange. In some cases with the children. Who were some of the kids were fairly friendly, but that wasn't bad. You could, you play with the kids or something like that. Worked with some of the adults. The Marine Corps had started a program that would get the Vietnamese to take over their part of the war. That's why I said Vietnamese Marines were quite well trained, and we had worked with them. And we tried to work with civilian populations to get them to be more supportive. Marine Corps ran several programs working with civilians and the military on that, and they were quite effective. It was under General Krulak's orders. He had devised a plan back in the mid-'60s. Westmoreland wouldn't hear of it though.
How was your living conditions while you were on the front lines?
Living conditions in a base camp wasn't bad. They were basically a wood structure with tents opened up and that because of the heat and humidity. In the field, you slept basically in with a poncho all over you. Still hate mosquitoes.
Were you ambushed at all during your service?
I was on 2 patrols that were ambushed.
Can you share with us?
Ambush. We were ambushed at one point. Marine Corps manual says that in the case of an ambush, you would turn and fire overwhelming superiority firepower against those that ambushed you, and that's basically how we got out of it. Movies where you see people running out of the ambush doesn't work because they usually have the ambush completely covered, so you literally have to turn into your ambush and try to put in more firepower than they have. And it's scary, very, very scary because you got fire coming from both sides. You can't go forward or backwards, so you're stuck there.
Were you ever taken prisoner for a certain amount of time?
No.
It's good to know.
Any last statement you'd like to make, Mr. Sandrowicz?
I look at today with the war going on in Iraq. I've never been a big, as I said earlier, nobody likes war, and I had my misgivings on this war, and I still have it to a point only because I see the American troops getting bogged down in the cities. They won the outright war of going against them out in the field, but once they went into the city, they're fighting into a guerrilla warfare, which is similar to what went on in Vietnam. The last time this country actually fought a major war in a fortified city was Way City in '68, the imperial capital, the old imperial capital. The 1st Marines, 1st Battalion went in there during the Tet Offensive, and they ended up fighting 2 regimental size of North Vietnamese regulars and have to be reinforced. The problems that happen there, it's happening what's happening in Iraq. You have people there that are going to hide and snipe, they're going to bomb. I feel sorry for the kids fighting there now. I really do. That's why I get very annoyed when I see people, though, protesting the war out openly, only because it's demoralizing to American troops, especially today with communications. It's more readily available. They see TV, they see that, and if they do see these shows or news broadcasts, it's very demoralizing to a young soldier.
Did you ever fight in these cities where you were shot at from buildings?
No, I was strict. Most of my warfare was out of the fields. A couple villages, but which were straw, thatched huts and villages and such. They don't have real type of city.
Was there any looting going on once you would overtake a specific area?
Some people looted. Some people would loot. I never got into looting. There were some that actually collected ears. I didn't.
That's all, Sandrowicz. We thank you for your time, your candidness, and we hope that your interview will be of use to future generations.
Thank you for your time also.